A master's wife's unconventional game. The slave who won her heart. In the sweltering heat of the southern plantation, secrets stir like the summer wind through the cotton fields. A young slave, bound by chains of duty yet drawn by forbidden curiosity, glimpses a world he was never meant to touch. The master's wife, poised in elegance yet hiding desires that dare not speak their name, watches from the veranda, her gaze lingering where no one should. Between the whispered glances, the hidden letters, and the flicker of hope in their hearts, a dangerous game begins, a game where love could either bloom or bring ruin. If you enjoy stories of love tested by time, secrets waiting to be revealed, and the weight of a world unwilling to bend, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Every story here brings you closer to lives and passions that history never recorded. Until now, sit back, let the plantation wind guide you, and prepare to step into a world of intrigue. The year was 1842, and the sprawling Fairmont plantation lay draped in the golden haze of dawn. Magnificent oaks arched over the fields, their roots tangled deep in the soil that had seen generations of sweat and struggle. In these fields worked Elijah, a young slave, whose dark eyes carried both the weight of servitude and the spark of a restless mind. He moved with careful grace, listening to the whispers of the wind, sensing every footstep that belonged not to the earth, but to the world above him, the world of those who owned him. Inside the grand house, Lady Marcelline Fairmont, the master's wife, walked with a deliberate elegance, her silks whispering secrets with each step. Behind her calm, porcelain-like facade, a mind both cunning and lonely plotted small rebellions against her own confinement. She had noticed Elijah, the boy who dared to glance up from the fields, whose quiet courage seemed to mock the boundaries of her world. Their worlds were not meant to touch. And yet, as the sun rose higher, casting long shadows over the land, destiny, capricious and dangerous, was already weaving a thread between the master's wife and the young man who was forbidden to even meet her gaze. The midday sun beat down mercilessly on the cotton fields, turning the air thick and heavy. Elijah wiped the sweat from his brow, his hands raw from the work that never seemed to end. Yet even in the backbreaking labor, his mind wandered, not to freedom, which seemed an impossible dream, but to the glances he had stolen from the veranda. Lady Marcelline Fairmont, draped in the elegance of silk and lace, had been watching him again this morning. There was no malice in her eyes, only curiosity, and something far more dangerous. The young slave had learned early the importance of caution. A single misstep could bring punishment or worse. Yet, something in her gaze felt different from the rigid expectations of the household. She did not see him merely as property. She saw him as a person. That thought alone made his chest tighten with a mixture of fear and longing. Later that afternoon, Elijah was sent to the main house to fetch water from the well. The air inside smelled faintly of lavender and polished wood, a stark contrast to the dusty, sun-scorched fields. Lady Marcelline appeared at the top of the grand staircase, a faint smile curving her lips. "Elijah," she called softly, her voice carrying an unexpected warmth. "Come here for a moment." His heart thumped violently. No one else dared address him in such a tone. He approached slowly, every step measured, careful not to betray the excitement that bubbled beneath his restraint. "Yes, ma'am?" he asked, his voice low, almost hesitant. She leaned slightly over the railing, her fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I noticed how carefully you work in the fields," she said, her eyes lingering on him. "There is a quiet pride in you. It is rare." Elijah swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. Praise from the mistress was both thrilling and terrifying. "Thank you, ma'am," he murmured. A few days passed, and small encounters began to stitch an unspoken bond between them. Lady Marcelline would occasionally leave a piece of fruit where he worked, a silent gesture of acknowledgement that left him both elated and unsettled. In return, Elijah found himself daring to linger near the edge of the veranda, daring to hope that perhaps she might notice him again. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, Lady Marcelline descended into the garden. She moved with a grace that seemed to defy the heavy restrictions of her world. Elijah was tending to a small patch of herbs near the servants' quarters when she approached, her presence commanding yet intimate. "You know," she began, her voice barely above the whisper of the wind through the leaves. "I have watched you for weeks, Elijah. You are clever, and you notice more than most." He felt the weight of her words settle over him like a cloak. "I try to do my best, ma'am," he replied, uncertain. She smiled, a faint, enigmatic curve of her lips. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to live differently? To have choices?" The question sent a shiver through him. Choices were a luxury forbidden to him, yet here she was, offering him the unspoken possibility. He did not answer, fearing that words would betray him, but the glance he gave her spoke volumes. In the days that followed, their secret encounters grew bolder. A note slipped beneath a door. A hand brushed fleetingly against another in the shadow of the veranda. Each stolen moment carried the electric charge of risk and desire. Yet danger lingered in every corner of the plantation. The master's sharp eyes and the watchful overseer reminded Elijah constantly that his world was one of rules, chains, and punishment. Still, Lady Marcellini's attention offered a glimmer of something extraordinary, something that whispered of love, an idea as forbidden as it was intoxicating. One afternoon, she approached him with a small vial in her hand. "This," she said, "is for the headaches you often hide from the overseer. I cannot make your life easier, but perhaps I can make it bearable, even if only for a moment." Elijah took it, his fingers brushing hers. The contact was electric, sending a tremor through both of them. He wanted to speak, to confess the wild thoughts that now fluttered in his chest, but the fear of consequences kept his voice lodged in his throat. "I thank you, ma'am," he said finally, his voice thick. Lady Marcellini's eyes softened. "Be careful, Elijah," she warned. "We tread a dangerous path. One wrong move, and everything we imagined could vanish." Yet neither could stop the pull between them. Each day, each fleeting interaction, deepened the unspoken connection. They both knew the risks, yet neither could resist. For in a world of rules, servitude, and societal chains, their hearts had begun to write their own story. A story that dared to defy everything they had been told. As the sun set over Fairmont plantation, painting the fields in shades of fire and shadow, Elijah stood in the garden, heart pounding, wondering what fate had in store for him. And somewhere above, Lady Marcellini watched, her mind dancing with possibilities too dangerous to name aloud. In the distance, the wind whispered a warning, carrying with it the knowledge that forbidden desires, once awakened, could never truly be contained. The humid night clung to Fairmont plantation like a living thing, thick with the scent of magnolia and earth. Lanterns flickered in the halls of the mansion, casting long, wavering shadows that seemed to whisper secrets no one dared voice aloud. In the servant quarters, Elijah sat on the edge of his cot, his hands trembling, not from exhaustion, but from the knowledge that tonight, everything might change. Lady Marcellini had sent for him under the cover of darkness, a quiet summons that both thrilled and terrified him. He moved through the garden, careful to step only where the shadows shielded him, his heart pounding so violently he feared it might betray him to the overseer's patrol. At the edge of the veranda, she waited, her eyes catching the lantern light and reflecting a mixture of determination and fear. "Elijah," she whispered as he approached, "I have risked too much to keep this hidden. But tonight, something must be decided." He swallowed hard, words caught in his throat. "Ma'am, I." She placed a finger gently on his lips, silencing him. "No, let me speak." Her gaze held his, unwavering. "I cannot deny what I feel any longer. You are clever, brave, and alive in a way no one else here is. And yet, this world will punish us if it learns of our connection." Elijah's chest tightened, fear and longing warring within him. "I would risk anything for you, ma'am, even my life." A sudden rustling in the garden froze them both. From the shadows emerged Thomas, the master's son and overseer in training. His eyes narrowed as he spotted Elijah near Lady Marcellini, their proximity impossible to ignore. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice sharp enough to slice through the night air. Lady Marcellini stepped forward, her composure a fragile shield against panic. Thomas, this is not what it appears. But Thomas did not listen. His hand shot out, gripping Elijah's arm with strength that made the young man wince. You think I am blind? You think I cannot see what is happening under my father's roof? Elijah's mind raced. Every whispered lesson from the elders, every cautionary tale about the consequences of stepping beyond one's place, surged in his memory. He could not falter now, not with her watching, not with his own heart exposed. Thomas, please, Lady Marcelline implored, stepping between them. He is loyal, honest, and nothing more. You misunderstand our interaction. Thomas sneered. Do you think lies can protect you? Do you think I will let this go unnoticed? His grip tightened on Elijah's arm. Pain flared, and a gasp escaped him. In that moment, Elijah realized the stakes had risen beyond secret glances and hidden notes. They were exposed. Their forbidden affection was no longer a whispered fantasy. It was now a dangerous reality. Lady Marcelline's eyes darkened with resolve. If you harm him, Thomas, you will answer to me, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Do you understand? The warning seemed to surprise Thomas. For a moment, he hesitated, uncertainty flickering across his face. But the shadow of authority, instilled by years of privilege, soon returned. You dare to command me, mother? She did not falter. I dare to protect what is mine to protect, and I will not stand by while cruelty dictates my household. Elijah felt her hand brush his, a fleeting touch that reminded him of the bond they shared. He had never felt more alive or more terrified than in that instant. Thomas's jaw tightened, and for a tense heartbeat, it seemed as though violence might erupt. Then, a distant bell tolled, the signal that the overseer was returning to check on the grounds. Thomas's face shifted from anger to calculation. This isn't over, he hissed, releasing Elijah's arm. Elijah stumbled backward, catching himself as Lady Marcelline's hand lingered in his. We must be careful, she whispered, her forehead resting briefly against his. Every step from here is dangerous. Every glance, every word. It must be hidden. Breathless and shaking, Elijah nodded. The taste of fear mingled with exhilaration in his mouth, and for the first time, he understood that their connection, as perilous as it was, could no longer remain silent. That night, under the cover of the starlit sky, they retreated to the far edge of the garden. Words poured out between them, confessions carried on whispers, and for a few precious hours, the world beyond the shadows ceased to exist. They spoke of dreams, of a life that might never be, and of a love forbidden yet undeniable. But even in that fragile sanctuary, a question loomed larger than the night itself. Could love survive in a world determined to punish it? Or would the very forces that bound them to their roles tear them apart forever? As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, Elijah and Lady Marcelline parted, each carrying the weight of their secret and the knowledge that the next encounter might not be as forgiving. Danger, desire, and destiny now intertwined, and the plantation held its breath, waiting for the inevitable collision of hearts and society's cruel rules. The morning after the confrontation, Fairmont Plantation awoke to a heavy, uneasy silence. The fields, usually alive with the rhythmic motion of labor, seemed subdued, as if the land itself sensed the shift that had occurred overnight. Elijah moved quietly, his steps careful, his eyes darting occasionally to the veranda where Lady Marcelline watched from behind the lace curtains. She did not call him, did not beckon him. Yet her gaze carried the same quiet intensity, a silent echo of the previous night's confessions. Elijah's hands trembled as he worked, though he tried to appear steady. The memory of Thomas's grip lingered like a shadow across his shoulders, a stark reminder of the danger that now surrounded them. Every glance, every gesture, carried the weight of consequence. He realized that from now on, nothing could be taken for granted. Lady Marcelline, for her part, struggled with her own turmoil. Her husband remained oblivious to the tension brewing beneath the surface, yet she knew the plantation's web of authority could unravel at any moment. She had tasted the exhilaration of speaking honestly to Elijah, of acknowledging her heart's desire, but the price of discovery loomed like a storm on the horizon. Every step forward required caution, every word measured. That afternoon, She summoned him again, but this time to a small, hidden courtyard behind the servant quarters, a place where prying eyes rarely ventured. Elijah, she began, her voice low, urgent. We must be careful now more than ever. Thomas's suspicions may have been stirred, and rumors travel faster than the wind. He nodded, his dark eyes wide, reflecting both fear and determination. I understand, ma'am. I, I will do whatever you say. She studied him for a long moment, the corners of her mouth curving into a faint, conflicted smile. I trust you, she said softly, but trust alone will not protect us. We must be clever, cautious, invisible. The young man's heart surged. Trust from Lady Marcelline felt like a treasure more precious than freedom itself. Yet beneath the thrill, a knot of anxiety tightened. Every glance they shared, every word spoken in secrecy, now carried the weight of potential disaster. Over the next few days, they navigated a careful dance of proximity and discretion. Lady Marcelline would leave small notes tucked inside the herb garden, while Elijah responded with words whispered into the wind, carrying messages beneath the veil of labor and duty. Their connection deepened, even under the shadow of scrutiny, but the tension remained constant. One evening, Elijah overheard the overseer murmuring to Thomas, "There's something unusual about the way the mistress regards him. You should watch him closely." A chill ran down his spine. Even hidden gestures and fleeting touches could betray them. Fear wrapped itself around his heart, but alongside it burned the stubborn, unyielding flame of affection that had grown beyond reason. Lady Marcelline, too, felt the tightening noose of caution. She began to act with an almost imperceptible restraint around Thomas, her every movement calculated, every word carefully chosen. Yet each calculated act only made her more restless, more aware of the dangerous thrill that lay in their forbidden connection. One evening, as twilight bled into night, she finally allowed herself a quiet conversation with Elijah beneath the old magnolia tree near the edge of the plantation. The leaves whispered above them, a soft, comforting lullaby in the oppressive heat. "Elijah," she said, her voice trembling with both hope and fear, "our hearts are entangled now. I cannot deny it. But the world outside will not allow us such freedom. Do you understand the danger?" He nodded solemnly, taking her hand in his. "I do, ma'am. But I also know I cannot turn away from what we share. I would rather face the world's wrath than deny my heart." She squeezed his hand, a silent agreement passing between them. And yet, even as they shared this brief, stolen moment of intimacy, the knowledge that danger lurked in every corner kept them anchored in reality. The plantation's routine continued, but the air had shifted. Every glance, every movement was now a careful negotiation with fate. In those days that followed, Elijah and Lady Marcelline became adept at concealment, their secrets strengthened by necessity. The tension of the confrontation with Thomas had not weakened their bond. It had, in fact, made it more urgent, more alive. Each small act of trust, each hidden word or gesture, carried the weight of defiance against a society determined to keep them apart. Yet beneath the careful choreography of secrecy, a storm brewed. Thomas's suspicions had not dissipated. They lingered, like distant thunder on the horizon, threatening to erupt at any moment. Every choice they made, every glance they stole, now had consequences that could shatter their fragile sanctuary forever. And so, the days continued, full of whispered words, stolen moments, and the quiet tension of hearts daring to beat against the boundaries of a world that would never forgive them. The plantation, beautiful and oppressive in equal measure, held its breath, as if waiting for the inevitable collision that would decide the fates of those brave enough to defy its rules. The late afternoon sun bathed Fairmont plantation in warm amber, softening the harsh lines of authority that usually defined the estate. The tension that had gripped the grounds after the confrontation with Thomas had begun to ease, though neither Elijah nor Lady Marcelline allowed themselves to forget the ever-present danger. They had learned that survival, in this world, required patience, cunning, and the careful weighing of every step. Elijah worked steadily in the fields, yet the knowledge that Lady Marcelline watched him from the veranda lent him a quiet confidence. No longer did their moments together rely solely on stealth. A subtle understanding had formed, a secret code of gestures and glances that allowed their bond to flourish without exposing them. A tilt of her hand, a nod from the balcony, or a carefully placed basket of fruit, these became their language of trust and affection. Lady Marcelline, meanwhile, navigated her role with renewed determination. She maintained her social obligations, attended her husband's affairs with composure, and kept Thomas under the careful scrutiny of polite words and maternal authority. Yet beneath the polished exterior, her heart belonged elsewhere, to the young man who had awakened a freedom within her that no societal rule could contain. One evening, as the sky blushed with the colors of sunset, Elijah approached her in the hidden courtyard. The air was fragrant with blooming jasmine, and the world seemed to hold its breath. "Ma'am," he began, his voice steady though his chest ached with emotion. I am grateful for every moment you have trusted me, for every word we have shared. You have given me more than I could have imagined." Lady Marcelline took his hand in hers, her eyes glimmering with unspoken emotion. "And you have given me courage, Elijah. Courage to be honest with myself, to know that even within the confines of this world, there is space for truth, for love." The simplicity of their words belied the depth of their bond. They had both faced danger, risked everything, and emerged with a connection stronger than fear. The plantation's strict hierarchies remained, but within those rules, they had carved a sanctuary for their hearts. In the days that followed, Elijah found himself entrusted with responsibilities he had never imagined, small freedoms that acknowledged his intelligence, loyalty, and careful judgment. Lady Marcelline's subtle guidance ensured that he moved through the plantation with a measure of autonomy, shielded from the worst of its scrutiny. Each day, the trust between them deepened, a quiet triumph against the world's constraints. Thomas, for all his suspicion, found himself checked by his own sense of propriety and the steady authority of his mother. Though he did not approve, he recognized the limits of his power within the household's hierarchy. And in this, the danger that had once seemed so imminent began to fade, though never completely. One late afternoon, Elijah paused in the garden, watching the light play across the magnolia blossoms. Lady Marcelline joined him, her fingers brushing his in a fleeting yet deliberate touch. Neither spoke, for words seemed inadequate to convey the gravity of their survival, the triumph of their hidden love. Yet in that silence, there was understanding, a shared knowledge that the bond they had nurtured could endure, even if the world outside continued to demand obedience. Their story became one of quiet resilience. Within the walls of Fairmont Plantation, where rules were rigid and freedom limited, two hearts had found a way to connect, to honor their truth in ways both daring and subtle. They did not speak openly of their love, but the language of glances, gestures, and trust carried a weight more profound than words could ever express. And though life on the plantation continued with its daily rhythms, the knowledge of what had been forged in secret, the courage, the loyalty, and the undeniable bond, remained a quiet triumph. Elijah and Lady Marcelline had discovered that love, even when constrained by fear and circumstance, could grow, adapt, and flourish in ways that neither time nor tyranny could erase. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the fields and the veranda alike, the young slave and the mistress of the house stood together beneath the old magnolia tree. Their hands met, and in that simple act, they sealed an unspoken promise to endure, to protect, and to cherish the fragile sanctuary they had built, no matter the world's demands. For in a place where freedom was measured in inches and life dictated by ownership, they had discovered something priceless: love that defied rules, love that gave them both courage, and love that promised, even in secrecy, a future carved by their own hearts. Years passed over Fairmont Plantation, and the seasons shifted as they always do, painting the fields in gold, green, and white. The work remained arduous, the rules unyielding, but beneath the canopy of authority and expectation, a quiet revolution had taken root, one not of politics or rebellion, but of the heart. Elijah had grown into a man of respect and quiet authority among the enslaved community, his intelligence and steadfastness earning him small freedoms that many could only dream of. Yet even as his stature rose, he remained humble, carrying the weight of memory and love with him wherever he went. He never forgot the nights spent beneath the magnolia tree, the stolen moments of whispered words, the courage that Lady Marcelline had inspired within him. Lady Marcelline, too, had changed. The strict elegance of her early years softened into a poised strength, tempered by experience and tempered by secrecy. She had learned that true power was not only in the wealth she inherited or the authority she wielded, but in the quiet acts of courage she could perform without acclaim. In protecting Elijah, in allowing herself to feel deeply despite the rules of society, she had discovered a resilience she had never known. Though the plantation continued to function under the rigid hierarchy of the South, there was a subtle shift that no one could name. Those who watched closely, the overseer, Thomas, even the servants, noticed a calm confidence in Lady Marcelline and an unspoken pride in Elijah. They moved like two stars orbiting one another in a universe ruled by rules and custom, connected invisibly yet unbreakably. The old magnolia tree remained their sanctuary. On quiet afternoons, when the work slowed and the sun poured warmth over the fields, Elijah would find himself beneath its branches, and she would sometimes join him from the veranda or courtyard, their hands brushing in silent understanding. No words were needed. Each glance, each fleeting touch, carried a history of courage, defiance, and love. In these moments, the world outside seemed distant. The plantation with its rules, its social strictures, even the ever-watchful Thomas, all of it faded. They existed in a space where their hearts spoke freely, where their bond was honored, even if it could not be announced. And in that space, they found a freedom the world could not grant them. Time had tempered their fears, but never extinguished their passion. Elijah had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. Lady Marcelline had discovered that love required not just desire, but patience, foresight, and the quiet audacity to believe in what others deemed impossible. Together, they had created a hidden sanctuary of trust and understanding, one that neither cruelty nor societal expectation could penetrate. Even as new generations were born, new hands tended the cotton fields, and new eyes observed the routines of the estate, their secret endured. It was a story not written in letters, not spoken aloud, but etched into the very air of the plantation, felt in the rustle of leaves, the sway of the magnolia, and the lingering warmth of shared glances. In the twilight of their lives, when the fields grew quiet and the work slowed, Elijah and Lady Marcelline often walked together beneath the magnolia. Words were few, but hearts spoke volumes. They shared laughter, small victories, and memories of a time when every step was a risk, every glance a defiance. And in that quiet companionship, they discovered that love, even hidden, could endure, not just for a season, but for a lifetime. Their story became a whisper on the wind, a testament to the power of courage, trust, and the human heart's capacity to connect even in the harshest of circumstances. It was a reminder that love does not always seek the applause of the world. Sometimes, it thrives in the shadows, quietly shaping lives, inspiring bravery, and leaving a legacy that even time cannot erase. As the sun set for the final time over the fields of Fairmont, painting the horizon in hues of amber and rose, Elijah and Lady Marcelline stood beneath the magnolia tree, hands intertwined. They had survived the dangers, the scrutiny, and the confines of their society. They had endured, grown, and loved, not recklessly, but wisely, fiercely, and enduringly. In the end, the world had not given them freedom, but it had given them something rarer, a love forged in the crucible of risk, tempered by understanding, and immortalized in the quiet, enduring sanctuary of the heart.